Welcome to Mondays with Mike. I'm Mike Levin, CEO of Harlem Lacrosse. Today we're joined by Tom Rothman, Chairman of Sony Pictures Entertainment. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to Mondays with Mike. We're delighted to be joined by Tom Rothman, Chairman of Sony Pictures and longtime supporter of Harlem Lacrosse and City Lacrosse. Welcome, Tom.
Glad to be here.
We're going to get into your distinguished relationship with the sport of lacrosse, but our audience will know you as a successful movie studio executive. So I'm curious.
Of today.
I'm curious to hear sort of what first drew you to the business, because as I understand it, you had a brief stint as a teacher before you were joined
my first job out of college. I was an English teacher and a lacrosse and a soccer coach at prep school. And then I won't bore your audience with the whole long tale of woe. Then I went to law school, and I started my career. I clerked on the Second Circuit, and then I worked at a small entertainment law firm. And then in the early 1980s, when American independent film was sort of bursting on the scene, I became a producer and eventually made my way to Hollywood. And 30-some years later, I've run an independent studio and 2 major studios. So that's a short version.
So, and through all of that, what would you say it is that you love about making movies?
Oh, it's one of the great. Look, my father, he was a lawyer, and he claimed that he hated his job. I don't know if it was really true, but that's what he said. And he had 4 children, and he would tell every one of them, "Don't do this. Don't work at something you don't love." And I'm that rarest of people in life whose vocation and avocation are the same. I've loved movies my whole life. I love creativity. I love the creative process. And I have one of the great privileged careers ever, which is, as we sit here on this Monday with Mike, I just worked on my 600th movie. So, and every one of them was an adventure of one kind or another.
Wow. So as an outsider, it strikes me as just a ruthlessly competitive business and very difficult to make a successful movie, let alone 600.
Well, here's the thing. The trick is, because I certainly didn't make 600 successful movies, the trick is make 301 of them successful and 299 of them not, and you can last. It's an intensely competitive business, and I absolutely love that. Not to torture the metaphor, but I'm still in the field every day. I could barely run across it now if I had to, but I still have to play hard every day because it is intensely competitive, and that suits me. I was always a competitive, boy growing up. I've been competitive my whole life. It's why I love sports, did love sports and still do. I'm fortunate that my work life continues to be an outlet for that.
I'm wondering if what aspects of your lacrosse career and your growth through the sport of lacrosse do you find yourself leaning on the most, other than, as you say, the competitiveness and competing every single day?
Well, it's a, like many cliches. Cliches are often true for a reason. Athletics, particularly team athletics, but not just, prepare you tremendously for life. And, I still to this day invoke a lot of the learnings that were ingrained in me as a young athlete, if I can refer to myself that way. My wife says the older I get, the better I was, which is probably true. Particularly in my world, particularly in a world where you have to take creative risks, and you have to be willing to risk, and you have to be able to put your blood on the line. The sign that is I understand, the Notre Dame locker room resonates with me. Everybody gets knocked down. Champions get back up. And you learn that very early in any kind of athletic endeavor. And the value of that is lifelong.
And can you share a little bit about how lacrosse came into your life and sort of why it's remained a part of your life?
Well, that's easy because I grew up in Baltimore. And yeah, I'm sure there are guys in the audience and they went to, Long Island or upstate New York or now almost anywhere, but nah, that's not the real deal. The real deal was growing up in Baltimore, and particularly in my era. I played in my first game for the Mount Washington Mosquitoes when I was maybe 5, before I graduated to the Mount Washington Midgets at the age of 7. And if you grew up in Baltimore in that era, that was a hometown tradition. And nobody really played Little League Baseball. You played Little League Lacrosse. So those are my very earliest memories. And so it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I went to high school and I went to Park, and it was there called the Maryland Scholastic Association. And I was fortunate enough to have some incredible coaches, Joe Seibold and the great Lucky Maloney, who taught me to stick my nose in it, come all the way around and dodge to the dirt. Stick your nose in it. And by the way, that's what I teach the young people who work for me in the movie business. I sort of I got recruited some places, but the story with me is that because we went to the same college, and I'm sure you were highly recruited, I was not, because my best season was my senior year. My senior year in the MSAB conference, I was the leading goal scorer, and I was on the waiting list at Brown. And a teacher of mine who had gone to Brown, who very much wanted me to go there, called the late Cliff Stevenson and said, "Do you know that the MSA conference leading goal scorer is on your waiting list?" And I got my acceptance like 2 days later. So there we go. So I get to credit lacrosse for my education. For the next 4 years, whenever I would miss, Cliff Stevenson would call me over and he would grab my face mask and he would pull it to me like this and he would say, "Hey, Rothman, you know there were 100 names on that list."
Probably another good lesson for your later career. It's like, as I sometimes say, it's like, you got to learn how to get yelled at. That's one thing I learned from sports for sure.
Yeah.
So, looking back at now, I've known you sort of like after you've had all this incredible success in Hollywood, and you're a busy guy who's done lots of things. You do not have to continue to have a relationship with lacrosse. Do you think there's something unique that makes it still a presence in your life?
Oh yeah, I think that like anything, and whatever it may be for any individual, when you grow up, there are certain, and you learn this in my business, which is a business of delivering emotionality to an audience, right, and making people feel things, and the depth and the truth of passion that comes from inside, and like any of us, I think those things are very much developed in our youth and childhood. When I was a kid, this is what I loved. So I think it comes from the depth of connection that was made with me as a young person.
So when we first met and you started to get involved with what was City Lacrosse, now Harlem Lacrosse LA, I'm curious, we've heard a lot about your relationship with the sport, but why did you take that meeting? What was interesting to you about the idea? How did you get into the idea of what is now Harlem Lacrosse?
You.
Thank you.
Because I'm a good judge of character. And I wouldn't probably have lasted as long in Hollywood as I have if I weren't a good judge of character. I took the meeting because David O'Connor, a guy that I worked with a lot when he was an agent in Hollywood and someone I respect a great deal, asked me to. And when people you respect ask you to take a meeting, you do it. That's something else I've learned, right? So I took the meeting, and you were there, a younger fellow than you are today. But I made what I do in the world the same thing when I hire directors or I hire writers or I hire executives. I like to think that I have a very decent EQ and a good sense of people. And I was very impressed with you. I do lots of philanthropy. It's very important. That's how I was raised. It's a very meaningful part of my life overall. But also, this was a chance to combine those two things, right? My belief in philanthropy with an aspect of, fair to say, my past life that I missed. And I missed having a more meaningful connection to the sport that had been so important to me. And this seemed like a chance to do that. And you didn't disappoint me.
I appreciate that. And on the other side of that, that's, I think a great part of your success. Going to that meeting, from my perspective, we had not done anything yet. It was just an idea. But getting someone to believe in you is part of what makes you successful. So it's a team effort for sure. And that's
yeah. And also, part of, I like to think what makes me have done okay is that a big part of my job is recognizing a good idea. You don't make successful films if they're not based on a good idea. And a lot of the poor films I've made were based on really bad ideas. And if you don't believe that, just compare Speed, great idea, to Speed 2, really bad idea, and I made both of them. So I thought your idea, and the idea for Harlem Lacrosse, which is proved out, was an excellent idea. Because on the surface it was about the sport, but in reality it was about education. And again, this is how I was raised, a big believer in education. I think education is the great ultimate leveler in an unlevel society. And I thought that the organization's early orientation towards education and ultimately matriculation was a really good idea. I mean, why not use something fun to help get kids into college?
And so thinking back to that time when we first met and what was a good idea and had some promise to now, our hope is to be able to send 250 kids a year or 250 kids to college in the next 2 years, which is as many as we sent in the first 15, that we're achieving some scale to this. When you think about supporting Harlem Lacrosse today versus 2015 when we first met, what is striking to you about the organization?
Well, I think the organization has done terrifically, and I think the numbers sort of speak for themselves. You just said it. You're going to send 250 kids to college? That's 250 kids. Maybe some of them would have got there, but probably a lot of them wouldn't. I go back to what I said. I just don't think there's anything that is a leveler for all the socioeconomic inequality in the world today. The only great leveler of that is education, and so I mean those are terrific numbers, and they're what I would refer to as proof of concept. Organizations. I know I've run large organizations for a lot of years, and at different stages they have different challenges. And the challenges that you face as a startup is not the same challenges that you face when you're trying to sustain at scale. So Harlem Lacrosse' next great challenge is to sustain its scale, sustain its mission, sustain its quality, and ultimately increase its numbers. And that's a challenge. Hopefully, you get the support that you need to do that, and I'm pleased and honored to be a small part of that.
Talking about the future and the challenges at our new level, we are ambitious. We're not here to take it easy on ourselves because we think the stakes are high for the current and future participants of Harlem Lacrosse. But one of the things that gives us faith and gives us the confidence to take chances is our partnerships with our supporters. And as you said, you've made a really substantial transformational gift to Harlem Lacrosse, in addition to all the things you've already done. And so I'm curious to hear about your experience as a supporter of Harlem Lacrosse. What do you like about being a supporter of Harlem Lacrosse?
Well, I think it's just what I said. I think it's fun. It gives me an opportunity to combine two things that I really believe in, which is I believe people who've been as lucky and fortunate as I've been, and had as many lucky breaks as I've had, not counting the time I broke my neck against Penn. That was an unlucky break. I should have face dodged again. People should give back. So it gives me a chance, I find it really gratifying to give back in the context of something I really like. It was so fun that day I went down and, with those kids and got to trot out my wooden stick that Dave White gave me and have them look at it like it was from Mars. I would put it this way, two strong things that make me just feel great, I love lacrosse. I love watching. I have a great affection for it. And it also feels really great when you can help some kids who, maybe wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity. That feels fantastic. So I would say that while it seems altruistic or selfless, I actually consider it to be very selfish, which is I get a lot of pleasure out of it. And I think people who experience the pleasure of philanthropy when it's done well feel that way. And the other thing I would say is I think that the organization does a very good job of staying in contact and sharing information, progress, successes, challenges, etc., with its supporters. I feel you guys do a good job of reaching out. I hear from you, not just when you're trying to raise money, but throughout the year. And I think that you're getting to a place. I saw some clips recently, I think you sent me, where you see some graduates of the program now starting to give back to the program, right? And I found that very, very moving and very encouraging.
Yeah, your orientation that you described towards giving, it's no small thing when you say people should give back. And when you talk about sort of education being the equalizer, that is the problem that we want to work on. We believe in self-determination. The kids of Harlem Lacrosse deserve the right to decide what their future will be. And just like you're describing your own lacrosse experiences, the things that you learn from coaches, getting grabbed by the face mask, learning resilience, that's what we want kids to learn, and that's what's happening today. There's 200 students at a camp in Maine, and they're experiencing the joy when you described this is something I loved as a child,
right?
And they're experiencing the challenge of trying something new, and hopefully they're deciding that this is something for me. I want it to be a part of my life for many years. So,
and then they're hopefully deciding also that they're willing to make the sacrifices and the commitment to make that possible, because that's the other thing you learn. You don't get anywhere. Let me tell you something. I work really hard in my life, and I still work hard. And you don't get anywhere without hard work. And hopefully hard work, commitment, discipline, determination. And I think that my hope is that that's also what those kids are learning. Because if they do, it will serve them in great stead throughout whatever they do in life.
Absolutely. Well said. And I think your last point about staying in touch, I think it's also what makes this unique and special is the collaboration. We are ambitious. We're going to try and do great things. And we are at the precipice of students coming back and unlocking a lot of potential for the organization. And that is a collaboration with our supporters. It's not a transaction. We don't want to come to you once a year and say, give us money. We want to work on solving these problems together to build a better organization. And
well, I think you guys do a really good job at that. And I think, as I said earlier, organizations have different challenges at different places in their lifespan. And the challenges of a startup are not the same as challenges when you're scaling. But I think the key is, for whatever it's worth, and you certainly don't need my advice, it's more my observation, is that yes, building a strong supporter network, you obviously have to have the money to do it, but the key reservoir that you have are the alumni through the program. And everything that you can possibly do to maintain that connection, the growth of that, not let those people who benefited from that experience let go of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The total body of alumni right now is, there are more students in college today than alumni who have ever graduated. So the volume of alumni is growing and growing, and that will unlock a lot of potential. So
I think it's great, and I look forward to the day. I'm hopeful, because the other thing that the current sport needs clearly is greater diversity. And I think that's one of the limitations on the sport, one of the unfortunate things about the sport, part to do with its regionalness, part to do with the expense of equipment and things like that. The sport is woefully, in my judgment, lacking in diversity still. I understand it's better than in my day, but my day was a long time ago. And I think one of the real great things that Harlem Lacrosse can do is to really expand and make the sport much more inclusive. And I really look forward to the day when I'm looking at a field of, a national championship game, and, there are a lot of sets of legs in that, in the shorts that aren't all white. I think that'll be a great thing, and I think it'll be another additional credit to the organization.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it as well.
All right, man.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks,
You're very
Tom.
welcome.
The story of Harlem Lacrosse is only just getting started. We're so excited to write the next chapter with partners like Tom and with all of you. Thank you.